I saw that everything is delayed. But as I always tell my friends, and I made this joke before and I will say it again, we always say, you've got the watch, but we've got the time. So my name is Anil Sadhuram, and I'm the founder and chief philosophy officer of Next Wave, which is actually a strategy and technology consulting firm. I have a background with some of the top-notch analyst firms that I still work with. I also work with other service providers, leading service providers, and also with what Gartner, for instance, calls cool companies, to help actually understand the bigger trends, global trends, and try to translate that for our region here in the Caribbean. What does it mean for us? Okay. In the beginning, there was the Word, right? And one day, that word was written down. As we know, that was the start of civilization as we know it now. Again, I'm talking about the bigger picture here. So, back then, we used to write on clay tablets. If you look back, these clay tablets are actually archives, our first archives, or the first library, you could say. And they were also used for accounting purposes. Let's say they were the first ledger. And now, we've talked about it, we are all connected, we all have smartphones, we all know about this. We all write, as a matter of speech, into the clouds. So all our information is over there. So, with the rise of the smart cities, with the dawn of the smart cities, where everything will be connected, we're going to break barriers, we're going to connect countries with each other, we will need next levels of cyber security and cyber trust. Actually, what we will need is a smart city operating system. So the big question is, how do you trust online, right? This cartoon, can't see it completely on the screen, but it's an old cartoon that's been there since the beginning of the internet, which actually says, on the internet, nobody knows you're a dog. It's still true. And we live in a time, interesting times, with the introduction of alternative facts or fake facts. So who to trust? To make things worse, technology is exponential. I didn't say exponential, I said exponential. Because it explodes, I'm not going to go into the details of it, but we are all aware of it. Things are changing faster and faster. So the question becomes, for instance, is blockchain the new clay? What I try to say with this is, with the rise of the smart cities, as we compare it with the rise of the old cities, back then they had the clay tablets. Now we have something called the blockchain, which is being perceived as an immutable ledger that can be used for many applications, not just cryptocurrencies. My friends here will talk a little bit more about that later. I'm not necessarily a blockchain evangelist, so the position that I'm trying to take as a chief philosophy officer is ask the right questions. So the question that I have, for instance, with the technology upcoming, like blockchain, is to understand if it's a hype or if it's real. This is the hype cycle of Gartner. A lot of technologies are coming out of labs, out of the universities, and they create a buzz, they create a trigger. The venture capitalists are jumping on it. But not all the expectations from the beginning are met in the end. So that's a whole process. It's very interesting. I can, if you want to know more about it, I can dive into it. But the bottom line is also, when it comes to looking at the hype cycle, is also understanding when something is relatively new. It also means that companies that are investing in it maybe not exist in 5 years from now. So also with your planning, when you want to do some investments, you have to take this into consideration. If we look at the blockchain adoption, so is the hype or real, we can also look at other ways, and that is to see what is really accelerating the adoption of it. What I've learned is that actually with the financial crisis in 2008, people were fed up that we were losing so much money and we were putting our hands, let's put it this way, in the hands of the bankers. So some people in the internet community, they picked up on what Satoshi Nakamoto already wrote, a paper about the blockchain and how it can be used for cryptocurrencies. The idea behind it is that you don't need a third party, you don't need a bank, etc. anymore to be able to do transactions with each other. So the decentralized control is a very appealing factor to embrace the blockchain. I'm not going to dive into all of it because of time, but if you look at, for instance, what is hindering the blockchain adoption, let's be honest, blockchain is still abracadabra for most people. But even though it's abracadabra, it's still something that is, being pushed. There's a lot of developments, there's a lot of service providers already that offer, for instance, notary services, identity management services, etc., etc. Again, it's not just cryptocurrency, it's much more. These guys will talk about it. If we look at some numbers, overall numbers, I looked at several analysts. This number comes from Gartner. The numbers that you are seeing here are not necessarily associated with the blockchain technology only, but the impact that the blockchain will have on the industry as a whole. These numbers are, you cannot conceive them. I mean, trillion, how do you conceive what it means? But let's say in 5 years' time from now, we will see, most probably, a lot of mature blockchain applications. If you have more questions, please send me an invite via LinkedIn or talk to me here while I'm here. Happy to talk a little bit more about it. It was also mentioned, Jerome and I, we created a white video instead of a white paper. It's on the CANTO side, so you can always, because it's on demand, you can also watch it in your own time. Thank you.